Greetings, my most excellent friends. I am Chris Stever, and welcome to another pandemically erotic episode of It Crept from the 80s. I am your beautiful, magical, mystical, majestic, nostalgic host. And today is a very special episode because I'm going to be talking about the brand new Bill and Ted film. But before we get to that, I want to go through my history with the franchise and talk a little about those first two films, and then we will get into a little bit of what we will get into the end of the trilogy. Can you believe that, folks? I said trilogy. We finally, after 29 years, have a full-on Bill and Ted trilogy. It's magic to mine ears, and every orifice throughout my sensual frame. So Bill and Ted, throughout the years, throughout magazines and TV specials and everything in between, and certainly going into the future, as it were, I have gleaned a lot of information about these Bill and Ted films. I was a huge fan, of course, so I knew early on that Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was shot in 1987, and it was shelved, and we didn't get it until 1989. So in 1989, I was 12 years old. By that time in my life, I was an old hat and going to the cinema, huge movie fan, already making, backyard horror movies and dumb, silly movies here and there, videos with friends and family and whatnot. And as I've said before, my mom and my uncles always took me to see all the crazier movies. Definitely my great aunt, she took me to see a lot of fantasy and science fiction as well, but my mom and my uncles, I would see the crazy comedies, I would see a lot of the horror, all that stuff. So when it opened in 89, my mom and I went to see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. And so they played it. Our theater was called the Babcock at the time, and it's just a two-screen theater. A nice small town 2-screen theater. But it's one of those small town theaters where if a big movie is playing, you're going to have, a line stretching down the block and whatnot to get in to see this movie. And Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure was playing on the upper. We had a lower screen downstairs and then an upper screen that it was built odd. It was built very odd, actually. It's hard to describe. I wish maybe I can find some pictures of what it looks like on the inside. If you're a fan of my movies, I have shot there several times for the Warlock films. But I don't think we ever went upstairs and shot the upstairs theater, the upstairs screen. Anyway, it was upstairs. I can remember it well because anytime my mom and I went to the movies, particularly a comedy, I knew that my mom was going to be the loudest person in the theater because she would laugh so hard, so loud, so uproariously, and she was a knee slapper, so she always would slap her knee if she found something hysterically funny. And this is one of those movies, Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I mean, not only was I laughing and thinking it was just one of the coolest movies I had seen, and again, I saw so much growing up, but this was an anticipated movie for me. But my mom was just loving it. So that was the weekend that it opened, and then the next week of school, which was close to school ending at that point, it was June, and our I went to a Catholic school at that time before I went off to, I guess, the rest of middle school and into high school. So our social studies teacher was also sort of our science teacher. I don't know. It was weird. It was kind of both. And for that particular day in class, it was going to be special because instead of doing in school learning, he was taking us all to see Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure because of this historical stuff in the movie. So in the first week of opening, I saw the movie twice, one with my mom and one with our social studies class. And it's just a great, awesome movie. And of course, when it hit video, I reserved it. Video Connection, they knew me because I was a movie nut, genre nut, and lots of times I would get first reserve. But it definitely, that movie definitely had me speaking, Bill and Ted speak for the summer for sure. I got the soundtrack cassette. It wasn't until later that I ended up getting the CD. Probably when Bogus Journey came out on CD. But I had the cassette of Excellent Adventure, and I loved that soundtrack. My two favorite songs on that soundtrack are Big Pig's Breakaway, Can't Break Away. That song is so good. The opening of Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure is so epic to me. The music, the cinematography, the crystal, which is the phone booth coming down, all that stuff. It's a great, when you're watching that for the first time, you're just like, we're in for some excellent adventures. This is some mystical, weird mystery shit. This is cool, and it sets the mood perfectly. It still kind of gives me chills to this day watching that movie, and I've seen it hundreds of times. But so yeah, I was definitely a fan of Excellent Adventure, and so those years between Excellent Adventure and Bogus Journey, I was a Bill and Ted guy, And when Bogus Journey was coming out, we started to get inundated with tons of Bill and Ted stuff. The cartoons and the cereal, which I have an original cereal box. I do have the cartoons. I'll show off all the Bill and Ted stuff that I do have, and I wish I had all of it, because I had in my bedroom I had a bunch of Bill and Ted posters, and maybe I'll show some footage of that somewhere up in here. But so I was, Bill and Ted, the toys was coming. Everything was happening, man, for Bill and Ted, and Bogus Journey was the impetus of that, based off of the success of Excellent Adventure. It was let's merchandise this, let's merchandise these two lovable buffoons. And so my anticipation for Bogus Journey was through the roof, so much so that I started dressing like both Bill and Ted. I got the soundtrack, everything. I had the posters, the cereal, the toys, the comic books. I started getting the comic books, and then the adaptation of the movie, and all that stuff. It was a big deal to me, and I even shot with some pals, my buddy Ben and Eric at the time. We shot a dumb Bill and Ted's thing, and I was Ted, and I'm going to show footage of that in here, and this was 1991. Because in my friend's backyard, it was kind of like a junkyard, I guess, but for some reason they had a phone booth in the backyard, and so it was perfect. We used that phone booth and everything, but I'll show some footage. But yeah, Bogus Journey. No, okay, so I didn't think Excellent Adventure could be topped And then at the time, Bogus Journey blew me away. Really, like this was mixing so much of everything that I love, and that's like the music, the horror, and those visuals, all that stuff, the weird comedy, the out there-ness of it all. They totally fucked with what a sequel should be, and just made it awesome. And at the time, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey was one of my favorite films ever. Like that movie, like, was a huge deal to me. Now, as a 43-year-old, I do like Bogus Journey. I know there's people who just can't get behind it, but I still, I still cherish those times, and I think it's still a great, crazy sequel. But Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure for me is the better film, and I absolutely adore that film. But I will say this: when I do watch Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I always follow it up with Bogus Journey. So, but it was a huge deal. It really was. Those movies was something special for this crazy, genre kid. And I became sort of obsessed with Alex Winter and his comedy, and at the time the show The Idiot Box was airing on MTV, and I became obsessed with The Idiot Box, and I just thought it was one of the funniest things. My humor, if you don't know, I know fans of my films and who know me throughout the years know this, but the type of humor that I like is very goofy, absurdist. I also love slapstick and satire and parody and subversive. I also enjoy. But it's mostly, my style is just, I really enjoy absurd, surrealist, goofy, out there, nonsensical comedy. And I mean, Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and then Idiot Box. It was all sort of in that same vein, and I just loved it. And I loved that Alex Winter was showing who he was as a writer and as a filmmaker himself, and so, through magazines, I'm a big fan of Fangoria, and I was collecting Fangoria and Gore Zone. And at the time, they were promoting Alex Winter's new movie, Hideous Mutant Freaks, which became Freaked. So I was following that film for sure, and I reserved the movie for when it came out. And I was the first guy in Wellsville to rent Freaked when it came out, and I was so excited, and it did not disappoint. Freaked was such a overload of all of that stuff that I love, even more so than Bogus Journey. It was Alex Winter and Tom Stern, who also did Idiot Box. These guys, it was their full-on bonkers creativity let loose, and I love it to this day. It's a highly quotable film. It's a cult classic, and I love it. But I'm just telling you the impact of Alex Winter and the Bill and Ted films, and of course following Keanu Reeves and going into where he ended up, which now is like Mr. fucking Badass. I mean, we all loved him, and I wasn't a giant fan. The Matrix didn't blow me away like it blew away a lot of people, but I did enjoy The Matrix. But I like River's Edge. I like, The Night Before, things like that. I like Keanu Reeves and these. Not that I can't appreciate Keanu and other things. Dracula, which is, he's hilarious in Dracula, but Dracula was fucking amazing. I mean, every camera trick in the book, every filmmaking trick was used to make Bram Stoker's Dracula, and I love it. I think it's a chefsterpiece. But yeah, so, growing up, you know these guys, you try to follow their careers. Of course, Lost Boys for Alex Winter. I mean, I knew, this is the guy from Lost Boys, that type of shit. But Bill and Ted has always sort of stayed with me. It's been a big part of the comedy and the films that I love, and really hitting home that it's okay to make movies like this, like these Bill and Ted films. And I know it's okay, but society overall, the filmmaking world, the movie world in general, and movie fans are very, very finicky, picky, cynical, have turned into real, like, I don't even know what a movie fan is anymore, because the majority of the human race hates everything. So are you a fan of movies, or do you just hate movies? Or are you a fan of hating films? I don't know. But that has happened the last 20 years, and it's never been like, I don't think I have a cynical bone. I'm not jaded. I still have that childlike wonder. You know, I'm going towards my mid-40s. I feel still like a kid. I mean, that's why I do this show. That's why I recollect my childhood. I still get in awe of films, and I'm taken away by the story, the visuals, what they can do, what films have done. It still excites me, and these Bill and Ted films are so unpretentious. They are so not cynical. They just have such a positive outlook on life. The characters are so optimists. They're optimists. The optimism is shining through these guys. They just be excellent to each other and party on, dudes. They just want to spread happiness, and they're happy, and they want to know everybody and be friends with everybody. And just, I love that about these films. There's nothing bad within these films, within these characters. It's just a big, sloppy, fun letter to cinema, to friendship, to life, and everything that we as a weird group of alien creatures on this floating rock have created, and it's just fun. So I love the message of these films, and that definitely runs into Bill and Ted 3. So I have sort of been following the Bill and Ted 3 story, for a very, very long time. Any sort of mention, any notice anywhere in media that was Bill and Ted 3, I definitely picked up on. I wanted to know more. I met Alex Winter years and years ago at a Chiller Theater, and talked to him at length about Bill and Ted 3, but also really gushed my love of the Idiot Box and all of that as well. But I mean, even at that time, he was, they were working on it. Keanu was up. I mean, they were all a part of it. Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon, who were Bill and Ted in the comedy sketch world that they created for themselves in 83, 84, something like that. Those guys created Bill and Ted, and then wrote these amazing films, and they all sort of kept nurturing this idea of a third Bill and Ted. And what I love about it is that it wasn't a money grab. It wasn't something where they could just easily, let's just do another one, and because we know it'll make money, and I feel like if that were the case, they probably would have done one 2 years after Bogus Journey, as most sequels did back in the day, 80s and 90s. It was sequel. It was like one right after another. And they didn't do that. They were honestly nurturing this idea, and I think it wasn't even like a real tangible thing for some of them. And I believe like the fans really like pushed it, because the fans of these movies are really truly fans of these films. They love these movies. And I think, knowing me as a fan, I always wanted to see more of these two. Regardless of how Bogus Journey ended, it was always like, man, you know, I love seeing these characters together. I love this world, and I want more. And for me, I could have seen, you know, 5 more sequels. I would have been fine as a fan of the horror films of the 80s and 90s. Sequel after sequel after sequel. I ate it up. I want it. Like, I'm one of those guys who, I want more Friday the 13th. You know, I want the 13th Friday the 13th film. I want the 25th Friday the 13th film. I love that stuff. But I also appreciated the fact that they were really taking their time, and if they were going to do this, they were going to do it on their terms, and they were going to do it because they really felt getting together and doing this was something special. It wasn't for money. It was for the fans. It was for them to reconnect. And man, I feel like it couldn't have come at a better time because of the situation we're in now. The whole pandemic, this COVID-19 thing is really nuts. And I gotta admit, here in New York State, you know, we've sort of handled it a lot better than other places. And we're like 4%. We are very low. We're like, it is almost back to quote unquote normal here. People are doing what they need to do. They're wearing their masks. They're, you know, staying away from people. It's pretty much on lockdown here. Not lockdown as we're locked in again, but I mean, we got our shit together in New York State, thanks to all the people who did that, and Cuomo and everything. I mean, we have handled it pretty well. So it's not as feeling as scary and claustrophobic as it did when it was first happening. And I know a lot of other places are still dealing with that. So it hasn't been as scary, but the movie world has been shut down. We just haven't really seen anything new at all. And being a movie fan and somebody who has been anticipating all these amazing films, it's a bummer. And, you know, Bill and Ted, Ghostbusters, all these things were things that I was really looking forward to this summer, and the COVID thing happened, and Halloween, all that stuff, things getting pushed back, and knowing that the world was changing and the movie landscape was changing, it was kind of like what a bogus, you know, what a bummer, because at this point, this type of entertainment would have been very gratifying. It would have been a nice balm to soothe the savage, you know, pandemic, if you will. So things got pushed back, and I gotta say, as a fan of Bill and Ted, and as a fan of these guys, Alex and Keanu and Chris and Ed and everybody involved, I really wanted this movie to have a box office moment, a traditional box office moment. I wanted to see Bill and Ted back on the big screen. But you got to roll with the punches. And some places were lucky enough to have select theaters showing it. But when they said it was going to go on demand, I was fine with it. I mean, I do have a 120-inch screen downstairs with an amazing projector, and I knew I was going to, you know, I just wanted to be able to support the big screen experience. But the anticipation for at-home viewing was pretty high, and they were moving it back to August 28th, which was awesome. And so I was anticipating, man. Leading up to the movie, you know, they put out a lot of contests, and I did that contest where you could send in a video of you showing your love for Bill and Ted with air guitar magic and shit. and if they liked it, it was going to be a part of the film. I did get the email saying that, hey, I got in, I was a part of the film, and I will show the video that I made for them right now.
Ready, Bill? Ready, Ted. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Be excellent to each other and party on, dudes.
So yeah, so that's the video I made, and I mean, they said it's in the credits with all the other videos, but man, there has to be like 300, 400 videos in those end credits that they put in there. So I'm gonna trust them, and you know, say to people that yes, they said I was in it, so I'm in it, and I'm somewhere in that montage of crazy multiple videos, but you just saw what I did for them, which was a little wink to the Idiot Box. There's a character that Alex Winter plays in the Idiot Box called Eddie the Flying Gimp from Outer Space, and that's kind of what he did in the open. He's this character, and I think he's so hilarious, so I did that and mixed it with the rock and radness and all that stuff. So. But let's get to the movie. And again, I don't really review films. I'm a film fan, but I don't review per se. I don't nitpick and go through every little thing and all that junk, because that just takes away the fun of just being a movie watcher. And again, I have that childlike sense of awe and wonder still. So I will say this, and this happens across the board with big anticipated movies for me. The first time I see a movie that I am like totally jazzed for, and I've got rad bonage for, it takes me a bit to process it, because while I'm watching it, I'm thinking, oh my God, I'm watching this, I'm watching that, like, whatever, a new Ghostbusters or Avengers Endgame or whatever it is that I'm hotly anticipating. I'm like, I am sitting here and I'm watching this. The new Star Wars stuff, because I'm a huge Star Wars guy. It's like, oh, I'm taking it all in, and it's new and I haven't seen it before, so I'm processing it. And it was a lot like that with Bill and Ted Face the Music. I was just so like, I couldn't believe that I was watching a new Bill and Ted movie. So I feel like, and we did like a marathon. We did all of them back to back. The premiere weekend when it just debuted. So I just was like processing the idea alone that Bill and Ted were together again on screen, and this was a future adventure. I was seeing something that I never thought I would see 29 years later. So that was I think, and again, it's like this with all the movies that I see like this, it's a hindrance, because I can't sit back and really have it wash over me, because I'm just so excited. It's like every nerve is like on end, and I'm taking everything in as much as I can, and I'm processing, and I'm looking at everything, and yes, I was laughing, and yes, I was smiling ear to ear pretty much throughout this whole movie. I really was. And I gotta admit, I did tear up a little bit near the end. The movie is just one big, you're just waiting for the crescendo of how, you're running to that crescendo. You were running to that punchline. You're running to that epic conclusion, the climax. And man, those last like 30 minutes is just like one big like marathon to explode in just pure positivity. It's pure like joy. It's pure we saved reality. Let's celebrate. It's a celebration. It really is, and that's what it feels like. So when the movie ended and we looked around and talked to each other afterwards, we were like, yeah, we really liked this. This was a lot of fun. This was just something to celebrate because, man, we need something like this. This movie is a great hug for the world. And as cheesy as that sounds, it's, again, this movie, there's nothing cynical about this film. It goes in that territory because it's trying to, it has that dichotomy of you're growing older, you're still sort of trying to hold on to who you are, but you also want to go forward because you think that if you don't go forward, your life isn't meaningful, and these guys had to write this song, and there was all this pressure, and they were they were war wearied. They were tired, and and it just. The world needed Bill and Ted Face the Music. So I knew I was going to watch it again. We watched it the next day because I didn't get to show my son River the movie. He didn't come to the premiere night that we did. And when River was like 6, I showed him the Bill and Ted movies. He thought they were funny, but he was 6. He wasn't paying attention. And then last year I showed him again, and he loved him. And his favorite is Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, but he does love the wackiness of Bogus Journey. So he's a Bill and Ted fan, and I knew, and he was anticipating this movie. We were set to go to the theater and all this stuff, but so we watched it again, and we were laughing, and he was laughing, and he was enjoying it, and this time I got to sit back, relax, and let the movie just flow. Just cleanse my body with its mystic cream. And I was loving it. I was just, again, smiling from ear to ear. There wasn't it was such a ride, such an adventure, and it really hits home all the messages, and man, I don't understand why movies can't be like this anymore. And for me, I guess maybe that's why I gravitate more towards everything that I loved growing up. I mean, I am born in the 70s, raised in the 80s. I'm an 80s kid. I love 80s cinema, pop culture, all that stuff. And they don't make movies as much anymore where it makes you feel that good. And Bill and Ted Face the Music just gives you a good feeling. There's nothing jaded and cynical about it. It is just pure fun. And I've been telling people that it's a big smile for the human race. It's a big, and again, that may be ludicrous and cheesy to say, but it's a joyous movie. And there's going to be a lot of people out there who still are curmudgeons and fart faces and people who say they're movie fans but really shit on everything that comes out because that's what you need to do nowadays, and people can't just enjoy a movie anymore. That's like a lost art for some reason, where you just enjoy a movie because that's what they're there for. They're to take you away for an hour and a half, 2 hours, whatever it is, to give you some sort of crazy entertainment. And I prefer genre. I don't do the drama stuff. It's like, because I'm living in the real world, I don't want to watch the real world, really. That's not something that entertains me. It has to be some sort of heightened experience for me. Heightened within the film and what and the stories they're telling. So I prefer weird stuff and genre and stuff that really truly takes you away. And for me, Face the Music just gave me a great big hug and a smile. And the music was great. Oh my God, there's a couple of songs in this movie that did, like, it gave me goosebumps. And like I said, there's the little tearjerker moment near the end, and it all culminated because it was seeing Bill and Ted again, seeing them be able to share what they had to do with the rest of the world, what they had to do with their daughters, what they had to do with the people around them. That it wasn't just them, it was how Bill and Ted affected everybody else and how they affected Bill and Ted. And it was a together thing, and watching that all culminate was really awesome. And Right Where You Belong, this song is so great, and it's perfect, and it reminds me of the Goldfinger song Superman, because for me anyway, it really hits home that, like, I am who I am, and I'm always going to be who I am, and I don't have to look behind or look forward to find who Chris Seaver is. He's right here, and I'm happy with him, and he's a big kid, and you may try to be doing this, you may try to be doing that, but in the end, you're who you are, and be happy with who you are and where you are and your station in life. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it was great. And the little stinger at the end, where you see old Bill and Ted again, and it's like this post-credit scene. I really loved it, because it's like they are who they are. They're not going to change. They're Bill and Ted right to the end, and that put a big smile on my face, and I loved it. And I loved these characters, and I really appreciate all these creative people coming together to make this movie really for the fans. There was no other reason to make this other than for the fans. And for me, you can see that. You can tell. And just for their effort, I hope they get all the success that the movie deserves. I hope that they make their budget back and then some. Just to give them props for putting this all together for us and keeping it going for so many years. I, as a fan, truly appreciate it. Yeah, I really cannot wait to have this in my collection on Blu-ray. I'm a physical media guy. I will always get physical media, so I will be getting this 4K release for sure. And yeah, wonderful. I'm a huge fan of William Sadler, so seeing him back as Death was fantastic. I loved all the new additions. I loved that Missy was there. I loved that Ted's dad was there. I loved the little winks and the nods to everything. I loved that you get another cameo from Chris Matheson and Ed Solomon, who were really funny demons. And they're in both the other two movies, Ziggy Pig and the New Age Contacting the Spirit of Ty Cobb. Those guys, they're in there. I love that continued through. I loved Dennis Caleb McCoy. That was great. It was just Kevin Yeager's work and Steve Wang, special effects. Those guys, they worked together on on Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey, and they did Hideous Mutant Freaks with Screaming Mad George and a bunch of other effects sites. Again, being a horror fan, all these effects guys are rock stars, so having Kevin Yeager and Steve Wang back is fantastic, and they did such a great job with Face the Music and all the prosthetics. It was great to see real shit, tangible prosthetics and tangible effects, and that was great, and just lovely. I loved it. Again, this wasn't a review, it was just my experience and my thoughts, and I really dug it, guys. It really is Bill and Ted 3. It is a natural progression from 2 and 3, and 2 to 3, and it doesn't feel disjointed or anything. It's like, this is 20, you know, this is many, many years later in the life of Bill and Ted. They have their daughters. It just made it was perfect sense. I love the Rufus cameo, and I love the little nod to Rufus's daughter, and it was her real, Kelly is her name in real life. George Carlin's daughter's name, and they made that in the movie, and it was great. Oh, it was just a big hug, and I love it. And thank you for enduring this rambling, ridiculous adventure down memory lane. And yeah, man. If you are a fan of Bill and Ted, if you truly, truly are a fan of Bill and Ted, you're not cynical, you're not jaded, you actually like things in life. You don't have to nitpick every goddamn thing. You can, verisimilitude is not an issue because fuck it. Again, I'll say movies are there to take you away. And it doesn't, as long as it's making sense within the film, that's all good. It doesn't have to make sense in real life because it's not real life. It's a motion picture. So if you can get behind all that, you're going to love Face the Music just like I did. And I hope you really, really enjoy it. So let's talk about your history with Bill and Ted. Down in the comments, let us know what you thought of Face the Music. Yeah, man. Positivity. I feel good talking about it. I'm so happy that I stuck with this franchise all this time, because we as fans were rewarded with this third movie, and now we have a Bill and Ted trilogy. It's no longer a legend. It's no longer myth. There is a third Bill and Ted film out there, and I think it's most triumphant. And this new material, new merch. I got some Bill and Ted stuff coming in the mail. My wife, for my birthday, got me the Blitzway 12-inch Bill and Ted Hot Toy style figures that are coming. She got me those for my birthday, and they're on their way in October. I got the animated action figures coming from NECA. I pre-ordered those. Those guys are coming in. So Bill and Ted is still with me, guys. So this goes through all 3 Bill and Ted films. And this was awesome as well because it gives you a lot of great stories and a lot of pictures I have never seen. Do yourself a mitzvah and check that out. And yeah, like the movies say, folks, be excellent to each other and party on, dudes, because the world needs it. The world needs it.